Hi, Sam Baxendale here, CEO and co-founder of Kinetic Hiring. Absolutely delighted to bring another episode of Insight on Demand to you today. We have a fantastic guest, Zen Wei, who is COO of a very interesting company called Thoughtful. Now, Thoughtful is a company that focuses on corporate wellness, and what Zen Wei is going to be talking about today is to really demystify the term wellness, which has become a very common term in corporate circles. So he's going to give his view on what wellness truly means in the corporate context. And he's also going to be exploring the significance of wellness to corporate success. We're also going to learn a little bit more about Zen Wei himself and Thoughtful as a company. So we hope you really enjoy the show. So Zen Wei, great to have you with us today. Thank you so much for joining us. As a starter, for the benefit of the audience, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, what you've been up to, and a bit about your background? That would be great.
Thanks for having me, Sam. I'm really excited to be here to kind of talk about everything that is related to well-being and stuff like that. But as a start, I'm currently serving as the Chief Operating Officer at Thoughtful, which is a digital mental health company. So we're trying to kind of pioneer a seamless end-to-end mental health care that is, making it more affordable and accessible and most importantly approachable, which we will kind of talk about later on. And my background really is that I spent the last 10 years in banking and consulting.
Okay.
Most recently with one digital consulting firm, Accenture. And I did study psychology as an undergrad, which is always why I tell people that Thoughtful is a special place for me, because it allows me to obviously move back into psychology, which is I'm still very passionate about, and at the same time, allow me to be a geek at the end of the day, because I'm still very passionate about technology. So at Thoughtful we do mental health and tech, so it's perfect.
Fantastic.
So I guess a little bit about what I'm recently doing is that I'm trying to learn how to swim again. And cool. It's been really, really tough, but I'm enjoying every second of it.
That's not an analogy, that's actual swimming.
Yes. We'll talk about being thrown into the deep end, I guess.
Fantastic.
Coming into a new industry and stuff like that. But yeah, I'm really, really swimming as well. Yeah.
Fantastic, that's great to hear. Thanks for the intro. Yeah. So I think as a starting point to introduce the topic of wellness, I'd really like to hear from your perspective, what does wellness mean to you? How would you define wellness? Because it's a bit of a label we're hearing quite a lot in the market. Yeah. Some perhaps more authentic than others. So I would really like to hear from you. What does wellness mean to you? How do you define it?
For me, how I would define wellness is really, getting people to be able to a state of equilibrium and high performance, right?
Yeah.
And really being able to give them the tools and also the resources to be able to do that. Wellness is really not just about being in crisis, but also being able to learn more about yourself, right? So wellness is about learning more about yourself, being able to actually identify different strategies and coping mechanisms.
Yes.
Wellness needs work, and problem solving is part of it, and it needs to be preventive as well, right?
Yes.
So wellness is something, it sounds really cliche, like you mentioned, there's different definitions thrown around.
Yeah.
But it's really a way of living, and there's actually very practical ways of how we can go about it as well. So wellness, it's not just about putting in place, tools and going for a yoga session. It's more than that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And if you can help sort of demystify the relationship between mental wellness and physical wellness, is it a combination of the two, a relationship between the two?
Yeah, so I think that one of the United Nations Health Secretary Generals once said that there is no health without mental health. And I would think that it's actually very closely related. There are so many studies that talks about one affecting the other. So like, for example, you don't need me to tell you that if you don't have enough sleep, you'll be less productive, and then you'll be more cranky, more stressed, and more depressed, right?
Yeah.
But the other way around is true as well. If you constantly feel stressed at work and stuff like that, you will definitely feel what we call as psychosomatic symptoms, which is symptoms that are manifesting in a physical way, right? So if you look at the general practitioners at the GPs, right, at the clinics, they will tell you that a lot of the times when people come to them to talk about headaches, stomach aches and stuff like that, they are mostly actually related to work stress or anxiety that they're facing one way or another. So it's actually part and parcel of each other. So at Thoughtful, when we talk about mental health wellness, our mental health professionals do talk about the physical part of things, right? Really asking you around like how you're taking care of yourself physically, but also at the same time, giving you techniques that you're able to actually cope from a mental health perspective as well. Yeah.
Absolutely. In terms of wellness, it's often put in the context of corporate wellness.
Yeah.
So one's wellness is linked to one's relationship with the workplace.
Yeah.
I was wondering if you could sort of expand on that a little bit in
Right.
terms of the relevance of your services, for instance. Is it really linked to corporate experience?
So I think a little bit of my personal experience is that, banking and consulting, which is well known to be, a challenging industry to be in. I've experienced burnout several years ago, and it was really the resources that were put in place at work that helped me kind of recover.
Yeah.
It's gotten so bad to a point where, I really needed to seek help elsewhere, and I really needed that external help. So if we look at corporate wellness, right, and how does that link to the whole employee experience, and I guess more importantly that employees are looking about is really like what is the return for that, right?
Of course.
I think it's closely related because from a corporate wellness perspective, it's about how do you maintain that productivity when everything is coming at you, right? How do you then keep your talent? As we know today, I mean, Sam, you would know this firsthand, is that the war for talent is definitely there. It's so hard to find good talent and want more keep them. If you don't spend time around taking care of the wellness of the people, making sure that they are at their optimum level, then you're doing your ambitions a disservice.
Yes, of course.
And it is a lack of leadership in that aspect because you are just focusing on delivering, but you're not looking at how to bring people along, right? So corporate wellness is really around having to figure out the personal aspect and also the structural aspect of things, and how do you kind of build that culture around that.
So there's a strong sort of commercial argument for investing in corporate wellness as a key strategy.
Let's look at what poor corporate wellness look like, right? The key things that is commonly cited is around absenteeism, where people will not report to work because they are reporting like, high level of stress, burnout and things like that. And we've mentioned around like, all the psychosomatic symptoms that would lead to illnesses, right? So there will be a way, and studies have found that because of all this high level of stress and things like that, you will lose about 2 months per employee, right? So that's a lot of time lost.
That's a lot of productivity.
If you want to aspire to kind of grow your business or to be able to maintain productivity. And another level to that is presenteeism as well, right? They are at work, but we've all been there where we are not 100% at work, right? You are just having all these things coming at you, but you are only probably at 30%. At best, right? So those are things that are hard to quantify, but we know it's there. Because what the employees are telling us is that they're leaving their jobs without having a plan in place because they're just so tired. I mean, Thoughtful has been growing. We've been looking into hiring so many different roles, and the candidates that comes to us, maybe perhaps because of the business that we're in, they're constantly citing burnout. So it basically meant that they really just can't take it anymore, right? And then when you want to replace them, there are different numbers that is thrown at us in terms of the cost of rehiring.
Yes, of course.
Everything ranging from 33% of the employee's salary to 1.5 to 2 times of their salary, right? And not to mention the hiring managers, spending time in the calls and stuff like that. So it's a very, very costly exercise to not take care of the wellness at the workplace, right?
So there's a real symbiosis between personal wellness and the commercial interest of the employer. There's an absolute relationship there.
I really like the statement around like, mental health at work is really a leadership problem. Because if you leave it up to the employees, then what you're trying to tell them is that you have all the control over this, it's your problem and not mine. But essentially, we are all shaped by our environment, you are making so many decisions as a leader. So it is up to you, you owe it to them to also, look into helping them as well. So it needs to be a two-way relationship, right? So it is really a leadership problem.
Absolutely. So Zenwei, I'd be interested in your perspective on different company cultures. Is it fair to say that there's no one size that fits all when determining a wellness program for a particular business or organization?
Yeah, so I think that's fair to say that there's no one size fits all, but I also think that there are fundamental building blocks that you can kind of take that as a baseline and go from there and tailor it as it fits to your organization. So you kind of think about it from a, I guess, structural, the social aspect and also the personal level. We serve a lot of corporate clients at Thoughtful, and we kind of think about it from that angle as well on how do you actually create that safe space for people and to increase the motivation and ability for people, because mental health or mental wellness in this region is still highly stigmatized, right? We talk about the issue of face. It's a big issue where you don't want to appear as weak. And because of that concept, sometimes when employees come to the leaders and they'll say like, tough it out, take a couple of days off, that to us is a lack of ability and motivation as well. So how do we then equip these people, provide them with resources and tools that they don't need to be a mental health expert to tell their employees what to do, because all they need to do is to link them to appropriate resources, right? So we talk about different tools for people to be able to practice practice that. So I've mentioned earlier in our conversation, it's a lifestyle, it's a way that you can practice that, and a little bit of problem solving, right? So essentially what we're doing is that we are adding resources to people.
Sure.
When the demands of work kind of subtracts the energy from them, right? Like it or not, there will be times where you just feel like it's taking away energy away from you and resources from you. So what we're doing is that we are adding resources to them to be able to stay productive. So the analogy is kind of like filling up a bottle. If the water going into the bottle is stressed, then we kind of need to open up small holes here and there to kind of drain it out a little bit.
Yeah.
Right? And that's kind of the tools that we're trying to give people. Everything from the social level to the people level to the structural level. Now, when it comes to the structural stuff, some interesting things that people have done, and not every company can do this, right? We are seeing trends like, companies like Bumble or Nike, they are doing things to have like a 1 week off break straight. And they term this as coping with collective burnout. Right. Such a nice term. But, I always like to joke that at Thoughtful, we've kind of done that before Bumble and Nike even did it. We've actually done this 2 years in a row where we took the year end off to kind of wind down to a minimal to let the team reset and things like that. I think that those are fundamentally important because it sets the tone around what you're telling your employees as important, right? It allows the social component that everybody is participating. So if you are championing for mental health, you don't feel like, you're the odd one out. So this is something that is normal for you to participate in, right? So we've also seen like practices around like no meeting Wednesdays and things like that, which are fairly common before the pandemic as well. That again is a leadership problem because it is only as effective as the leaders that will exercise them. I personally been in situations where it was supposed to be a Friday go off at 5, but it was never exercised because the leader was still working.
Of course.
Nobody dared to walk out, right? Really having that social aspect. You have that structural changes, but you also kind of need to kind of move people as well to have that critical mass. I think that's definitely important.
Leading by example.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Sure.
Thoughtful is about wellness, but it's also a digital brand. Digital goes hand in hand with data.
Yeah.
So I'd be interested just to get a bit of a scoop on what you see the role of data in this whole kind of wellness platform.
Right.
Yeah.
I think conventionally speaking, before the wave of digital came on board, I think the aspect around wellness and mental health wellness has always been very limited in terms of the visibility of what's happening on the ground. So there were attempts of it, but I would think that we're trying to do something better than that, right? So in the past, what happens is that you will look purely on utilization. And the typical offering for mental health wellness is typically a crisis hotline, which only serves like a small fragment of people that we're trying to serve. And you only have utilization of those things, right? And because of privacy and anonymity, which is extremely important, you only know why they come to you for. Like, for example, they say like, oh, it's about burnout or it's about a bad relationship that they're having at the moment, right? Beyond that, it's kind of like a black box. And then you wait for your annual engagement survey and then you found out that people are happy or unhappy in certain areas, but you're also at the same time questioning whether that's genuine because you know that sometimes it can be manipulated. So what we're doing is that we are adding another layer of data that is, of course, controlled at an aggregated population level so that we don't make it identifier at a personal level. But what we're giving is that we're giving you wellness outcomes, right? So we're telling you how they're feeling when it comes to the stress level, the anxiety level as a group. And then you as people leaders will understand, what are the appropriate times to make certain interventions, right? I guess like health outcomes and what are top of mind of people, right? I guess in a more like indirect manner, because most of the time the surveys are more hard or cold on the corporate stuff, right? Like for example, where do you want to grow yourself? Like, I want to learn about marketing or product or whatever it is. We are adding an additional layer to supplement that. So you'll be able to have a deeper, richer insight around, what is top of mind of the employees on a monthly basis rather than on an annual basis, right? So having those data points will help you plan your interventions on a more timely manner.
Fantastic. Great summary.
In the Asian culture, the work environment here, people are still not comfortable in voicing their wellness concern to their supervisors or to HR even.